There he is. Big Daddy Chuck Schumer. And Hakeem Jeffries, who's done very little.
Okay. Well, we met with the president for the first time since all of these issues started, even though we have requested repeated meetings with Leader Thune, Speaker Johnson, and the president. We have very large differences on health care and on their ability to undo whatever budget we agree to through rescissions and through impoundment, as well as pocket rescissions. And I think for the first time, the president heard our objections and heard why we needed a bipartisan bill. Their bill has not one iota of Democratic input. That is never how we've done this before. When I was leader, we negotiated 4 times.
Enough with the never how this has been ever done before. They do not care. They don't care. We're not doing stuff like that anymore. They don't care about decorum. They don't care about tradition. And that is not how we should be operating as a country, because what has been done before hasn't worked either. It's not like when we did business as usual, we were addressing the needs of the American people, even before Trump was in office. That's the reason why his rise to power has been enabled. It's because nothing has been accomplished. There's a huge vacuum of real leadership, and he came in and said, I'm going to fix things for people.
Times with Republicans, and we never had a shutdown. And so it's up to the Republicans whether...
For appearing like a smart guy, like Chuck Schumer, you know, objectively on the surface is a pretty intellectual man. You know, he's well-spoken. He's got great vocabulary. He knows a lot about American history. He's pretty stupid. It's a stupid man. It's a stupid man who has been played by Trump, a stupid man who won't resign, who won't step aside, let a new generation of leadership take over. He's been a failure in every regard. And yes, you can say, oh, he went after Trump and he has tried to stand up for the American people. He's done nothing. I mean, can you name one specific accomplishment of Chuck Schumer where you can say you're proud of Chuck Schumer, that he did something for us?
They want to shut down or not. We've made to the president some proposals. Our Republican leaders will have to talk to them about them, but ultimately he's the decision maker. And if he will accept some of the things we asked, which we think the American people are for, on health care and on rescissions, he can avoid a shutdown. But there are still large differences between us.
It was a frank and direct discussion with the President of the United States and Republican leaders, but significant and meaningful differences remain.
Who in their right mind decided that Hakeem Jeffries should be the face of the Democratic Party, the leader of the House Democrats? I mean, the guy has no charisma, but more importantly, he has no ideas, no policy agenda, and he doesn't even endorse the Democratic candidate for mayor in the city that he represents. He represents New York City in Congress. That's what he was elected to do. And New Yorkers overwhelmingly voted for Zohran Mamdani to be the Democratic nominee. And before endorsing Mamdani, Jeffries was quick to endorse a piece of legislation that honored Charlie Kirk as an American hero. That should tell you everything you need to know about the Democratic Party, their priorities, how out of touch they are with the American people.
Democrats are fighting to protect the health care of the American people. And we are not going to support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the health care of everyday Americans. Period. Full stop. There's a Republican-caused health care crisis that is causing hospitals and nursing homes and community-based health clinics all across the country, in rural America, urban America, small-town America, the heartland of America, and black and brown communities throughout this country. And that crisis is happening right now. And that's why we believe there is urgency to both keeping the government open, reaching a bipartisan spending agreement that actually meets the needs of the American people in terms of their health, their safety, their economic well-being and quality of life, while also addressing the dangerous Republican healthcare crisis.
We laid out to the president some of the consequences of what's happening in healthcare.
He doesn't care, bro. What the hell is going on? What I don't understand Chuck Schumer. He suddenly thinks Trump is going to have a conscience and think, "Oh wow, you're right, Mr. Schumer, about these consequences that the American people are going to suffer. You're right. Why didn't I listen to you all along?" You really think Donald Trump gives a shit what you think, Chuck Schumer? Do you really think he even cares? He took the meeting because he's probably bored, and he took the meeting to just string you along. And I just saw now JD Vance is slamming Democrats for being responsible for not getting a deal done. Look, I don't know what goes through these people's minds that think that Donald Trump still wants to reason with them, still wants to negotiate with them. There is no more working across the aisle. We are in a cold civil war. They say that they want the Democrats to work with them, and they turn around and they call us traitors, terrorists, Antifa, scum, you name it.
And by his face and by the way he looked, I think he heard about them for the first time. The closing of rural hospitals. The fact that so many clinics are closing. And I don't know if he knew this before, but the fact that people will pay $4,000 more a year, $400 more a month, close to $5,000 more a year on their health care premiums if we don't do anything. And people don't know what to do. The average working family can't afford that. I told him how I met a mother who was crying to me because her daughter had cancer. And what has happened with health care?
Dude, he doesn't care. He does not care. He does not care at all. He literally defunded cancer research. He doesn't care. What is it going to take for there to be some radical change of leadership here? Like, you guys, like, I wish you could hear me. And, the more I'm critical of the Democratic establishment, the more I'm going to be uninvited from events where I actually can talk to people like this face to face. But look, I have to put my own selfish ambitions aside of wanting to meet members of Congress, wanting to meet, House Minority Leader House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. The country is literally in decline, and the future of our country is at stake. And this is so sad to see. This is the best we've got.
With what they have done, she's going to watch her daughter suffer and maybe die. And so he seemed to, for the first time, understand the magnitude of this crisis. And we hope he'll talk to the Republican leaders and tell them we need bipartisan input on health care, on rescissions into their bill. Their bill does not have they never talk to us. Thune didn't negotiate with me. Johnson didn't negotiate with Hakeem. And on the key issues, the Appropriations Committee, which has talked about 3 of the smaller bills, they're good bills, they said the appropriators couldn't agree and said kick it up to the 4 leaders. They still haven't talked.
Yeah, let me say, we're deadly serious about addressing the Republican-caused health care crisis because it's a deadly serious issue for the American people. Largest cut to Medicaid in American history. Hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health clinics closing right now. The fact that more than 20 million Americans are on the brink of experiencing dramatically increased premiums, copays, and deductibles because of the Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, which benefit working-class Americans.
Yes, all true and good. However, we had the opportunity to go down 2 separate paths. One path with Bernie Sanders would have said, let's expand healthcare access to everybody. And everybody was excited about that. Even conservatives thought, wow, this could be great. We could all have healthcare. And then you'd have these naysayers who are like, well, who's going to pay for it? And this sounds like socialism. But once everybody has healthcare, I don't think anybody cares at all who's paying for it. And by the way, you're already paying for it because you're paying extremely high premiums for your privatized health insurance. And even if, let's say, healthcare is free, maybe your taxes go up a little bit. We have way too much money in this country for that to even be relevant. Okay? There are so many other countries where everybody has good quality healthcare for free because those countries aren't sending billions and billions of dollars into bombs to put overseas. And by the way, Bernie Sanders said, let's expand healthcare. Hillary Clinton said, let's keep the status quo. Let's maybe, you know, play around the edges a little bit. Don't do anything too crazy. How'd that work out? Then you get this rogue guy, Donald Trump, who says the system is broken. People can't afford anything. I'm going to make my own healthcare plan. Well, he's never had a healthcare plan, but at least he appeared as though he was going to present some type of radical change. And what do we have here? More status quo. Well, we just need to protect Obamacare. We're not going to do anything besides that. There's no point. All we need is Obamacare. That's perfect for everybody. It's working perfectly. Clearly, it's not working perfectly because people are so poor and people are so desperate. They think the Democratic Party doesn't represent the working class anymore. They think Donald Trump, for some reason, is the working class champion, even though that's a complete example of fraud. But what we're seeing on this side is also fraud. I don't believe what they're saying is even sincere. This is them showing that they're trying to resist Donald Trump, but they know nothing is going to happen as a result of this.
And we pointed that out. I pointed that out. Working class Americans, their health care, that's what we're fighting to preserve, to defend, and to strengthen.
Thank you. Question? Yeah, we're going to take questions or not? No.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
It's like, you want to take questions? Nah, there's no way that can end well. Oh, and then here's JD Vance. Let's see what he had to say.
Leadership. Look, everybody.
It's crazy how they just each came out to the same spot. Oh God, look at little mini Mike Johnson.
Good afternoon, everybody. We just had a very frank conversation with the Senate and House Democratic leadership. Look, the principle at stake here is very simple. We have disagreements about tax policy, but you don't shut the government down. We have disagreements about health care policy, but you don't shut the government down. You don't use your policy disagreements as leverage to not pay our troops, to not have essential services of government actually function. You don't say the fact that you disagree about a particular tax provision is an excuse for shutting down the people's government and all the essential services that come along with it. If you look at what Chuck Schumer has said in the past consistently, it's whatever our disagreements are, let's negotiate with them, let's talk about them, let's figure out a bipartisan solution, but you don't shut the government down. In other words, you don't put a gun to the American people's head and say, unless you do exactly what Senate and House Democrats want you to do, we're going to shut down your government.
That sounds like some pretty violent rhetoric to me. Why are we still talking about guns and threatening Americans? Look, I know he was making an example, but come on.
Exactly what they're proposing out there. Now we have to remember they're very frustrated. They say that they're very frustrated about the fact that this negotiation has not taken place until today. But if you look at the original thing they did with this negotiation, it was a $1.5 trillion spending package, basically saying to the American people, we want to give massive amounts of money, hundreds of billions of dollars to illegal aliens for their health care, while Americans are struggling to pay their health care bills. That was their initial foray.
How are you even going to nod and pretend like that's true? I think people are finally catching on to the fact that illegal aliens, as they call them, are not getting health care. I mean, nobody can name one specific example of an illegal alien getting health care except for an emergency situation, right? Like, you only have access to Medicaid in like an emergency or a pregnancy, if you're undocumented. And so the whole basis of their claim is so stupid, right? But that's them insulting your intelligence. They're looking at you like they think you're dumb, and they think you're so gullible that you'll just believe everything they say. When this is the same administration that has lied about the Epstein files, same administration that lied about Iran, same administration that's lying right now about the crime in the streets, about how Antifa is running our cities into the ground. You want to believe that undocumented migrants are taking your health care, and that's the reason why you're paying more for health care? That's complete bullshit.
This negotiation, we thought it was absurd. We told them it was absurd, and now they come in here saying that if you don't give us everything that we want, we're going to shut down the government. We think that's preposterous. We think it's totally unacceptable, and we think the American people are going to suffer because these guys won't do the right thing. Now, I want to make one final point here. You will hear a lot from Senate Democrats, from House Democrats about the fact that American health care policy is broken. Well, we know that American health care policy is broken. We've been trying to fix it for the 8 months that we've been in.
What have you been doing to try and fix it exactly? What have you been doing to try and fix it? Jack shit. You've been doing nothing to try and fix it. Objectively speaking, you are kicking nearly 20 million Americans off their health insurance and still adding nearly $4 trillion to the national deficit. It'd be one thing if you said, oh, well, we're going to kick these Americans off of healthcare, but at least we're trimming the fat on the national debt. Or it'd be another thing if you said, well, everybody's going to have healthcare, but it's going to cost the national debt more money. No, you're doing both things wrong. You fucked up twice.
Office, but every single thing that they accuse about being broken about American health care is policy the Democrats have supported for the past decade. So if they want to talk about how to fix American health care policy, let's do it. The Speaker would love to do it. The Senate Majority Leader would love to do it. Let's work on it together, but let's do it in the context of an open government that's providing essential services to the American people. That's all that we're proposing to do, and the fact that they refuse to do that shows how unreasonable their position is. I think we're headed to a shutdown because the Democrats won't do the right thing. I hope they change their mind, but we're going to see. I'll let the Speaker say a few words.
Let's listen to this traitor say a few words.
Thank you, Vice President Vance. I want to thank the President as well. They showed strong leadership today. They invited the 4 leaders over here because the President is operating in good faith, and he demonstrated that very well. The problem is that Chuck Schumer and Leader Jeffries refuse to acknowledge the simple facts. Let's review what the simple facts are. As the Vice President was saying, this is the common sense thing to do. This is the right thing to do. This is the simple thing to do. By way of review, the House is getting back to the way the regular appropriations process is supposed to work. 12 separate appropriations bills passed through the House Appropriations Committee, 3 off the floor. The Senate doing their work as well. All this in bipartisan fashion, by the way. They passed 3 bills in the Senate. Those bills don't match up exactly. So for the first time in years, since 2019, you have a conference committee that is being constituted between the House and the Senate. This is the way a bill becomes a law. They work out the differences. All this is happening in bipartisan fashion. The problem is we've run out of clock. September 30th is the end of the fiscal year, so we need a little more time. So what we did in the Republican majority is the right, responsible, simple thing. A clean, continuing resolution, a short-term, nonpartisan continuing resolution. It's only 24 pages in length. Leader Thune has a copy if you want to see the exhibit. There's nothing partisan in here. No policy writers, none of our big party preferences, because we want to do the right thing by the American people and allow more time for negotiation. Now, there's a reason that Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries have come out here, stomped the feet, saying that they can't go along with this. They're trying to bring in extraneous issues. They issued a...
This whole thing just makes the Democrats look so inept. I'm sorry. Even though I know, yes, these are the monsters that are trying to kick people off of healthcare, this just makes the Democrats look so bad. The way that everything is being presented. The PR for the Democrats is atrocious. Whoever is writing their speeches, whoever is running their social media, it's awful. And it's awful because they don't have anything to actually stand for. Their entire party is just, let's resist Trump and go back to our party, which was doing nothing anyway. It's really hard to convince people for the 3rd time now. This is basically like the 3rd iteration of Trump, if you think about it, because he won, then he lost, now he's won again. It's really hard to convince people to keep going along with the Democrats when their entire platform has become anti-Trump, but they don't actually have anything to propose as an alternative. There's no clear leadership. There's no bold policies, right? They're still fine with the minimum wage being the same. They're still fine with sending money to Israel. They're still fine with deporting migrants because you saw the way that Democrats tried to change tune on that. They tried to make it seem like they want to tighten up the border too. So the only thing that gives me hope is there are some rising stars that see through the noise, that actually see what people want. They're reading the room, like Zohran Mamdani, for example, following the teachings of somebody like Bernie Sanders. There's others too. There's Graham Plattner, the guy running for Senate in Maine. He says, I'm not taking corporate money. I'm not sending billions of dollars for war. I'm going to take care of people in Maine. We're going to help increase wages, help increase access to health care. It's a no-brainer. You need to have a party that is unapologetically pro-worker and anti-war. Very simple ingredients You could destroy the Republican Party with that. You could absolutely wipe them off the floor. What's the saying? Mop the floor, wipe the floor, whatever. You could just sweep them with that policy.
Counter proposal. You should go take a look at what they requested. $1.5 trillion in new spending that is unrelated to the ongoing appropriations process. They wanted to, as you said, restore taxpayer-funded benefits, okay? Hard-working taxpayers in America. They want to take your funds and give that for benefits to illegal aliens. They want to restore that because we got rid of it.
Dude, I'm going to just keep pushing back on this because eventually people need to understand this. Illegal aliens, they're not taking anything from you. In fact, people who come to this country illegally, by the way, I think that's even BS in and of itself. Arbitrary lines dividing humans. That might be a little progressive of me to think that. But you got people coming to this country to escape situations in their countries, most often because we've destabilized their countries, right? So think about everything we've done in Central America, for example, the way we've ravaged war on these countries, sanctioned countries. Countries are poor, people are struggling, there's gang violence because of these vacuums of violence that we've left open in those countries where we go in, we exploit for their resources, we take what we want, we leave a mess behind. People are fleeing those situations. They come to our country because we are supposed to be a melting pot. People have come to this country for a long time, and most of our ancestors did not come here legally either. What the hell is legal immigration when you're fleeing persecution in Europe during World War II? You come to America, you got no legal paperwork. You just show up at Ellis Island and you figure it out, right? That's how it's been. Yeah, sure, some people got their paperwork done, but most people came to this country and they figured it out when they got here, right? But that was all fine and good when everybody was white and European, but now that we have all these scary brown people from countries like Guatemala and El Salvador, it's a big problem. People think that those people are taking your health care, your houses, your jobs, when in reality, immigrants are working and paying into a society that they can't even reap the benefits from. They're paying taxes, yet they're not getting health care from those taxes. They don't get a right to vote by paying taxes. They don't get anything. All they get is they're contributing to our economy. They're spending money on stuff too, to eat, to survive, to buy stuff. So enough, okay? Everybody needs to grow a brain and understand objectively what is really going on. And they have just made them the boogeyman because they think that they can distract you instead of making you realize that the power is at the top and the people taking your money, people like Mike Johnson, they want you to look at the poor Mexican guy who's working on a farm, who is trying to get his paperwork done and is now being harassed by ICE Gestapo agents. They would rather have you watch that whole charade on TV, right? They want to do a little reality TV. They want to chase some immigrant out of a Home Depot and let you see how exciting it is, instead of letting you look at the real problem, which is at the top.
They want to prop up left-leaning media outlets. $500 million they threw in on top of that. $1.5 trillion on a 7-week stopgap funding measure. We're not going to do that. They know we can't do that. And we never have in the past. During the Biden administration, there were 13 threatened shutdowns. The Republicans in the minority did the right thing. We kept the government open. We're simply asking for the Democrats to do the same. Again, I want to thank President Trump for the strong, solid leadership. He listened to the arguments, and they just wouldn't acknowledge the simple facts. I want to thank Vice President here for showing his leadership as well. If the Democrats make the decision to shut the government down, the consequences are on them, and I think it's absolutely tragic. We've never said that was a good idea. We never.
By the way, notice Trump is absent. That sick old man is getting older and more disgusting day by day, and he's actually not even doing the work, it seems, and they're actively propping up J.D. Vance as the replacement. You know, the way this is all presented is so interesting. They're trying to make him look very presidential. He's becoming the guy. It's all according to Project 2025. Everything is happening as it was planned, as it was written.
Believed it is. And I want you to remember, when we voted in the House, we passed it out of the House. The House has done its job. We did that almost 2 weeks ago. Every Democrat in the House except one voted to shut the government down. That is the record. And don't forget it. I'll ask Leader Thune to step in here.
Well, thanks, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Vice President. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, is what we're talking about. 24 pages. It's a continuing resolution to fund the government through November the 21st.
This is one evil man. This guy is just a straight up Nazi. Look at this fucker.
I don't know where they're saying this is some huge partisan thing. This is something we do fairly routinely. And when the Democrats had the majority on 13 different occasions, they had the majority, President Biden was in the White House, we passed continuing resolutions to fund the government. This is purely and simply hostage taking on behalf of the Democrats. The Republicans are united. House Republicans, Senate Republicans, President Trump. The House has passed a
President Trump. President Trump. We are all united behind President Trump. I love President Trump. He's our supreme ruler. And by the way, Trump, tomorrow he's going to meet with generals. It's going to be like a whole Führer like worshiping session. They're going to like suck his toes and they're going to be like, we love you, Mr. Trump. Hail Trump. Hail Trump. The generals are all united behind Hegseth and Trump.
clean funding resolution to fund the government until November the 21st. It's clean, it is bipartisan, and it is short term. But it gives us enough time to finish the appropriations process, which is the way we should be funding the government. So Republicans...
Here's a question. Why isn't Mike Johnson sworn in Adelita Grijalva, the new Democrat who won the special election in Arizona that would give 218 votes towards releasing the Epstein files? I wonder why Mike Johnson is stalling on that front.
In the House and the Senate, President United, they've passed the bill. This is sitting right now at the Senate desk. We could pick it up and pass it tonight. We could pick it up and pass it tomorrow before the government shuts down. And then we don't have a government shutdown. It is totally up to the Democrats because right now they are the only thing standing between the American people.
Watch the Democrats cave too. It's going to just be so embarrassing. Like whatever the Democrats do is going to be just extremely embarrassing. There's no other way to put it.
And the government shutting down. We're all in favor of funding the government. And this is something that's been done routinely 13 different times by the Democrats when they had the majority. So it's to me, it's purely a hostage-taking exercise on the part of the Democrats. We are willing to sit down and work with them on some of the issues they want to talk about, whether it's the extension of premium tax credits.
These guys are just mad because their Grindr accounts are suspended currently because they were using it too much last night.
Reforms. We're happy to have that conversation. But as of right now, this is a hijacking of the American people, and it's the American people who are going to pay the price.
Can you respond
Russ,
to
you want to say a few words?
Sure. We want to keep this government.
This is the real sick fuck. This is the real Nazi, Russ Voigt. He is the guy behind the guy. He is the Project 2025 wizard who is really in charge of everything that's happening, and he kind of keeps a low profile, right? Stephen Miller kind of does a lot of the airtime. Obviously, we see a lot of J.D. Vance. We see a lot of Marco Rubio. But this is the bastard you really want to pay attention to. Let's hear what this sick Nazi has to say.
Government open. It is not good for the American people to have the government shut down for any period of time. We will manage it appropriately, but it is something that can all be avoided. It can all be avoided by accepting a reasonable position, which is what the House has passed and what sits at the Senate desk, which is to continue to fund the government with a short-term continuing resolution.
Who told this guy that tie looked good on him, by the way? What a dork.
It has never been a viewpoint that $1.5 trillion is a reasonable amount of spending to be included on a short-term CR. This is hostage-taking. It is not something that we are going to accept, and we hope that the Democrats come back from the brink, fund this government, and allow us to move forward. Thank you.
What a dweeb.
What's up? So just to be clear,
What's up? You're not tough, bro. You hear me? He's like, what's up? Yeah, what's up? What do you want? I'm JD Vance. Like, I'm the man. Yeah. yeah, like my version of America is gonna be so amazing. We're all gonna be white, except for my wife. You know, I'm gonna have an Indian family, but everything else is gonna be white and Christian. Don't look at me.
Is there room for negotiation here with Democrats? And you mentioned you believe that we are
Somebody in my chat said you are sick calling people Nazis. Nah, fuck you. These are Nazis. These are fucking Nazis. They literally are running on a platform that wants to install white Christian nationalism in this country. A country that has freedom of religion. A country that is not supposed to be a white nationalist society. And they are abducting people on the streets, sending people to concentration camps. Ever heard of Alligator Alcatraz? Ever heard of the Sikot prison in El Salvador? Trump says he wants to send homegrowns there. Trump says that if you're Antifa, you can be arrested and deported. Antifa simply means anti-fascist. So you're telling me that if you're opposed to fascism, you're suddenly a terrorist? That's according to this fascist administration. Okay? An administration that platforms Nazis, an administration that harbors Nazis, run by Nazis. JD Vance is one of them.
headed toward a government shutdown. Is the federal government preparing to fire federal workers if the government does indeed shut down?
Well, first of all, we have to keep essential services functioning as well as possible if the Democrats shut down the government, and Russ has been tasked with making sure that's possible. Now, you asked about negotiations. One of the things I admired about the president, but frankly the entire team's approach during the conversation we just had with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries was, you know, yeah, they have some crazy ideas. Giving taxpayer money to illegal aliens for health care, that's a crazy idea. Funding transgender surgeries in Peru, that's a crazy idea. But they had some ideas that I actually thought were reasonable, and they had some ideas that the president thought was reasonable. What's not reasonable is to hold those ideas as leverage and to shut down the government unless we give you everything that you want. There were multiple times where Leader Jeffries or Leader Schumer would say, you know what, we should be doing this, and the President of the United States would say, yeah, absolutely, let's have that conversation, but we're going to do it in the context of the people's government being open. We're not going to let you take the people's government hostage and then give you everything that you want. And that's really the state of the negotiation. Yeah, let's have a conversation, let's have a negotiation, but we're not going to shut down the government because we won't give the Democrats everything that they want.
Can you
Can you respond to what Senator Schumer said, that there were aspects about health care ending for certain people that the president was learning about for the first time in that meeting? And was the president open to a deal on the ACA subsidies?
Well, I'm highly skeptical that the president was learning about it for the first time, thanks to Chuck Schumer. But what I will say is, look,
They continued to just embarrass Chuck Schumer, who did that on his own, by the way. But I'm not saying this because I support these lackeys. I'm saying Chuck Schumer needs to go. He needs to step aside now. Like yesterday, dude. Like, you are not the man for the moment. And it has really nothing to do with age either. Because you see people who are of his age that are fighting, like Bernie Sanders. But Hakeem Jeffries is half his age, and he's just as inept. He's just as much of a failure. Both of them need to go. They need to step aside.
We've put a $50 billion rural hospital fund into the big beautiful bill that we passed a few months ago, because we know that under Biden administration's policies, there are a lot of small town hospitals, a lot of rural health care that was getting shut down and that was struggling. We're trying to fix that problem. In fact, we're happy to work with Democrats to fix that problem. We want to work across the aisle to make sure that people have access to good health care. We are not going to let Democrats shut down the government, take a hostage unless we give them everything that they want. That's not how the people's government has ever worked. That's certainly not how it's going to work under the Trump administration.
Dude, every single time under a Democratic administration, Republicans always shut the government down because they're mad that people are either getting more health care or people's wages are improving. And they always shut the government down. They're like, this is not going to work because we're not going to have enough tax breaks for billionaires and corporations. We're not going to have enough money to send to Israel. We got to shut the government down.
This is very important on health care. Their counterproposal, what Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are demanding, is that they claw back the $50 billion that we put into the rural hospital support structure. They want to take that back. We're not going to do that. We passed that because we have to allow for that. Also, if they shut the government down, not only are troops unpaid, federal workers, and all the services that everybody relies upon, but the WIC program, the nutrition program, women, infant, and children, they will not get that program, will not be funded.
Oh, so now you care about that kind of stuff? Now you care about women, infant, children, getting food, getting medical care? Oh, okay.
FEMA won't be funded. We have hurricanes.
Oh, now you care about FEMA? Now you care that FEMA is not going to be funded? This is the same administration that tried to defund FEMA. You guys are literally defunding FEMA. Why the hell you care about FEMA being defunded? Weren't you on record saying how FEMA is DEI and woke, and we don't need FEMA because let people figure it out with the states. Leave it all up to the states, right? Let's see how well that worked out in Texas.
Off the coast of the United States right now. This is serious business. You have telehealth, you have mental health services, all that's funded by the government would stop if Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats have their way. The Democrat shutdown would be damaging for the country. We can't allow for it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, let it stand. Mike Johnson right there says if the government shuts down, FEMA will be defunded, as this administration actively guts FEMA.